A little while ago, a new trailer came out for Pixar's Elemental, and then a few days ago, a new TV spot, and I don't hate it, but I also don't like it. I didn't really feel anything while watching it, and that is what tells me this is going to be another flop in a string of flops for Pixar. Let's talk about Elemental, Pixar in general, and where the company might be headed. In the last video, I mentioned that Pixar's been headed downhill for a while, and I haven't enjoyed their movies for a few years. People in the comments were asking me what I didn't like about Luca and Soul, and I had to take a little bit of time to think about it because I couldn't articulate exactly why I didn't enjoy these movies. I just knew that I didn't. I finally sorted it into two reasons: repetitive, obvious themes, and padded runtimes. Just for reference, we're talking about the trend set by their 5 most recent movies: Onward, Soul, Luca, Turning Red, and Lightyear. You know, it's really interesting that the quality of the movies has gone downhill shortly after John Lasseter left, but we'll talk about that in a minute. Of the group, Onward is the best, in my opinion.
I take that as a compliment. I must have said it wrong.
It had a sensible story first, and a wholesome universal theme mostly baked in. It probably stands out for not being about prejudice or generational family trauma. Pixar has always had surprisingly deep and mature themes for so-called children's animation, but they were always hidden inside of a fun, entertaining package. They worked on multiple levels, and even if you didn't get the underlying theme, you could still enjoy the entertaining face of the product. Onward had a great theme about gratitude and family, and they weren't slapping you in the face with it constantly. Contrast that with Luca, which is about prejudice.
The boys are escaping prejudice. The girl is suffering from prejudice. The townspeople are prejudiced. The main villain kid is a prejudiced bully. We're different, but we're all really the same.
It was about as subtle as a Harrier jet and bored harder than a diamond tip drill. We discussed last week how DreamWorks has been doing a much better job weaving their themes subtly into their productions. Listen, I need you to subtly hit that like button. That's the one. That's the one. When they aren't banging the drums of prejudice, Pixar falls back on generational family trauma.
And I'm just like, listen, do you have another thing? And they're like, this is our only thing.
Turning Red had so many things wrong with it, but my mom is dumb and doesn't understand me was only one facet of this failure. Pixar's also starting to take more heat for their what if
thing
had emotions formula that they've been using for a couple of decades at this point. Elemental looks to be the unholy trinity of all 3. What if elements had feelings? Check. Prejudice, because elements don't mix. Check. Family trauma, because Ember is being forced into the family business. Check.
Is this your only thing? And he was like, yeah, man, this is my only thing.
Does Pixar have like an internal movie by numbers guide? Because this feels like it. Back to Onward for a second. Being the best of this bunch isn't really a compliment any more than me bragging about winning a foot race against grade schoolers. And it neatly ties into my second qualm with new Pixar. They're making feature-length films that have no business being that long. It's clear that they had a few interesting ideas that could have been made into 45-minute mini movies. When I really got to thinking about it, this is my main complaint with new Pixar. The ideas aren't terrible on paper. A couple of friends want to go on an adventure and think a Vespa's gonna provide it. They meet an unlikely friend along the way. Alright, cool premise. They have to overcome prejudice to win the Vespa. Happy ending. It's not the strongest theme and ending that I've ever seen, but it's also not the worst. What went wrong was a series of time-padding contrivances in the middle that made this movie feel like it was 4 hours long. I could not have been more bored after the first half hour. A lot of the movie just felt like it was there to fill out some arbitrary time requirement. And Soul hits the same wall. Why do we have this guy investigating the extra souls? Did we really need to drag out the scenes about the main character's life? Did the body swapping humor have to go on so long? Had it been tighter, Soul might have been a really fun movie, but in its current form, it feels badly paced and padded. That's why most of the movie is so forgettable. It didn't need half of its runtime. Lightyear. There are so many things wrong with Lightyear. It's an anomaly of laziness for the studio, really. Look, I think their recent entries are average at best, but you can tell effort was put in, just in the wrong places. Lightyear was such a transparently phoned-in cash grab that it almost doesn't feel right using it as an example to demonstrate Pixar's core problems. That movie stands alone in its own pile of filth. What's not filth is today's tea sampler. I'm very excited. Last time was mint, it sucked, but today we have decaf chai It's also in another cup that I got from Anthropology. I went a little crazy last weekend. You can find the whole sampler link below. Try them along with me. Onward also fell into the too long category. As I said, it is the best of the group. It has a very interesting premise. What if magic was real but obsolete? That is such a cool concept to explore. A boy misses a father he never got to meet, but gets one chance to meet him. He goes on an adventure with a goofy older brother and discovers that said brother was his father figure all along. Lovely, wholesome, interesting. Except the execution falls apart again in the middle. We got a good start and a neat ending and a middle that dragged on. They needed to set up scenarios to show us that the older brother was the father figure all along, but the way they did this was a wild goose chase with unconnected locations that always ended with, oops, we read the map wrong. Oops.
Plot device.
Happened and the quest got extended. We still have very limited information about Elemental, but all signs are pointing to the same problems here. First, it's directed by Peter Son, whose other directing credit is The Good Dinosaur. Hey, can you give me a plot summary of that one without looking it up? If you're having trouble, don't worry. The movie was so bland, your brain's garbage collection got rid of the details to save memory. What we do know is that the main character, Ember, feels stuck in the life of her parents. She has to work at her dad's store, which appears stifling. She's told elements don't mix, despite them seeming to everywhere else. This leads back to my earlier prediction that the movie is going to be partly about racial prejudice toward the fire people. Then she meets a guy who tells her it's all a lie, she can live any life she wants. Elemental feels like what an AI bot would generate based on Pixar's filmography. As I said, I don't hate the trailer. I don't hate the premise of this movie. I just don't think there's enough substance here to justify a feature-length film, and it's going to show. Also, the theme of segregation and breaking out of your family's expectations doesn't seem to be an undercurrent here. It's a freaking tsunami. We have one piece of info remaining, and that is this possible antagonist Cloud. But with the information they've shown so far, this movie looks like a boring, blunt message movie. And I'm gonna go on the information that I have. I don't pass bills to find out what's in them, and I think it's really weird when people defend movies by saying, well, you don't know, you haven't seen it. They put the trailers out to inform me of what to expect. Hey guys, I kept putting this video off in favor of more time-sensitive videos, and my procrastination has paid off, and I absolutely am going to learn the wrong lessons from this. Reviews are coming in from Cannes, and they are saying exactly what I am predicting. It's an unwieldy racial allegory, says Roger Ebert. He also said the writing is so flatly predictable it suggests a Pixar film authored by AI. Nice. It's swamped in syrupy sentiment, says Deadline. Variety calls it an overcomplicated rom-com that is a bit of a misfire. Look at how shocked I am. The city is going to be cool, and the visuals look great. And that's about the only compliment that I can give right now. It looks like a cool tech demo that somebody dubbed a story on top of. A lot of people are calling this movie Great Value Zootopia, but let's look at how well Zootopia worked. Yes, there was an undercurrent of prejudice, but there was also so much going on to fill in that movie. Judy's journey to be a cop. Nick wants to be a better person. The city was its own character. They're solving a mystery, and the mystery has another mystery inside. There was plenty of plot and subplot that kept that story moving. Based on the recent TV spot, there is a problem in Element City, and only those two can solve it. Maybe that's going to provide some justification for the runtime, but I'm remaining pessimistic. Since the focus of the movie seems to be this element relationship thing, that problem in Element City is going to feel tacked on just to pad the runtime. So now, where does this put Pixar if Elemental doesn't make money, which I suspect it won't? Pixar has not made any money on a movie since Toy Story 4, and that was 4 years ago. Since then, they have lost hundreds of millions of dollars on these movies. Toy Story 5 is going to be interesting because Toy Story 4 got panned. People hated it, but it still made over $1 billion just because of the nostalgia. Toy Story 5 is not going to have that boost. Look at these movies. Onward cost between $175 and $200 million to make versus making $142. Soul had a budget of $150 million versus a box office of $121. No one knows exactly what Luca cost, but I think it's an okay estimate for $175 like the rest versus a box office of $50 million. Turning Red cost $175 million to make, and because of the pandemic, only made 20. Lightyear cost $200 million, made $225, and after marketing, they lost $100 million on that movie. All of them except Lightyear came in below production costs at the box office. That is not even including marketing cost. That is a massive string of losses for a company that used to be a juggernaut in the industry. That lamp used to strike fear into the hearts of other studios. Now Elemental is coming and there's no buzz. It's going to have to compete directly with The Flash. It also has to compete with residual views from Spider-Verse and Transformers from the weeks before. Then 2 weeks after its release, it has to face off against Indiana Jones and Ruby Gelman Teenage Kraken. It's a very crowded June, and this movie doesn't stand out enough to not get buried. We don't have budget info yet, but considering the trajectory of Pixar's recent projects and considering this movie's 7-year production, I feel pretty confident putting the budget at $200 million. When this movie doesn't make money, it's going to be pretty interesting to see what Disney does with the company. Disney is not in the best financial health, and Iger is looking to cut costs. It would be pretty shocking if a company that's been losing hundreds of millions for 4 straight years isn't at least considering to be on the chopping block. The best case scenario would be turning Pixar into an in-house Disney Plus studio. As I said, I don't think their movies deserve to be feature length anymore, but if they could consistently put out 45 to 60-minute mini-movies direct to Disney Plus, that could fill in a gap for Disney's original programming. It's possible the company gets sold to drop some red weight from Disney's books, although that comes with some risk to the optics for Disney as a whole. Ha! I was smart enough to do a poll before filming this time, and the majority of you guys think there is no way Disney would sell Pixar, and you brought up some very good reasons. Some people said Pixar is too close to the core of Disney's identity, and selling it would be such a blow to investor and customer confidence that no amount of money they got in the sale would be worth it. That's a good point, and some people also brought up the licensing rights for past Pixar properties. This gets a little murky. The contract could of course be massaged to give Disney rights to some of these properties for a while, in the same way that Universal Studios Orlando still gets to have the Marvel characters. Now, Marvel Hero Island doesn't seem to have an expiration date, but some things do, like Simpsons World, which is rumored to be shutting down in the next few years as Disney's purchases start to take effect. But Simpsons World brings up a good point about aging properties like Pixar from its golden age. They're still making money from the glory days via licensing. Plenty of kids are still having Cars, Toy Story, and incredible themed parties, and buying the merchandise. But that won't go on forever, and Pixar doesn't have new things to take their place. You want to throw your kid a Turning Red party? You're gonna buy Soul plates and napkins? The old stuff has a shelf life, long though it still may be, but it's gonna be tough to have a Luca ride that gets people excited in the same way that the aging Simpsons World is not why people flock to Universal Studios. Look, it's an okay place. I've been there. But I went to the park to visit Hogwarts, not Moe's Bar. The point is, they're screwed both ways unless they can make good movies again. Selling it would be a huge blow to their public image, but keeping it means continually flushing money down the drain. After being booted from the company in 2018, John Lasseter joined Skydance Studios, which is owned by Apple. He came on mid-production for the studio's very first film, Luck, which is on Apple+. My family thought it was pretty cute. We wouldn't write home about it, though. He has been in full control of Spellbound, which is coming later this year, and I'm very interested to see his first full post-Pixar movie. The ultimate irony would be Apple buying Pixar, putting Lasseter back in charge, and reviving the brand. But now it's your turn. Tell me how you're feeling about Elemental and Pixar's future in general. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.